This match will get red hot. It's on!
For me, picking up Cuphead really was a no-brainer. I'd seen the game being played at Gamescom, and as a lover of the 1930s proto-Disney era art motif it has become infamous for, this really was a game I was going to pre-order. As a prefix to this review, and perhaps a spoiler, I'd like to state the following about Cuphead. Never has a game made me hate it so much with its innate difficulty, and yet compelled me to keep playing with its irresistible charm. But let's get into the real meat of what makes Cuphead so sickeningly addictive. The story revolves around our eponymous hero Cuphead and his sidekick Mugman, who represents the second player if you choose to play the game in co-op. The pair find themselves in a casino owned by the devil himself and losing their souls at a dice toss. In a bid to save themselves from damnation, the devil offers to spare them in exchange for the souls of all of those who have lost theirs but not paid up. It therefore becomes the task of the porcelain duo to travel the Inkwell Isles, defeating these individuals and retrieving the deed to their souls. As far as the story goes, it's rather dark for a game represented in such a cartoonish fashion. Then again, Cuphead is all about defying expectations. To be frank, the game's major selling point is the graphics. I think we all understand that by now. Although I'd argue the 1930s aesthetic is probably quite subjective, many vocal supporters, myself included, are smitten with the hand-drawn, goofy and nostalgic stuffed brilliance on offer here. Each character moves and flexes as if they're made from rubber, bouncing about the screen and emoting in puffs of white smoke or lightning bolts. The entire game has a damaged film effect over it and a more overall dulled contrast to keep things befitting of the time frame. And yet it still looks and performs absolutely spectacularly. As niche as the art direction is, it's instantly recognisable and charming to boot. Cuphead is one of the, if not the best looking indie game I've seen this year, and I don't say that lightly. It really is all about the glamour of the hand-drawn excellence of animation pioneers, with all the dodgy racism thrown aside. Taking the old and revitalising it for the new has done the game wonders. Furthermore, the soundtrack by Chris Madigan matches the visual aspects of the game to a T. Energetic jazz-led cacophony does a wonderful job into driving you through each level with more of a spring in your step than a slug. Not to mention the old-timey sound effects that some have called distracting. Pops, puffs, zaps and clonks work magnificently to bring together each encounter you're faced with. And the dialogue, what little there is of it, is a mixture of Charlie Brown-esque adult vocals moaned into a tin can or sound as if they were recorded with a microphone crafted from twigs. Still, poorer quality for the sake of being thematic makes sense. Clearly the game has been designed this way for a reason and I love it. There's something strangely satisfying, perhaps an ASMR in a way, of the crackling of the music softly in the background. It's so genuine. Cuphead is controlled with either the traditional Xbox layout controller or a keyboard if you choose to play on PC. However, I would strongly recommend plugging in a controller. For reference, I've been using the Steam controller instead of the more common 360 gamepad, and the mapping is pretty much exactly the same. Controls are responsive and quick to familiarise yourself with, as you would expect with a run and gun style shooter. What challenge there is to find is the variety of moves offered and how they're used to dodge the frankly obscene amount of damage one must deal with. For instance, tapping the jump button after a jump will do a mid-air parry move, which will allow you to gain a second jump off pink obstacles, take no damage and fill your special meter, allowing you to use more powerful shots and moves. As helpful as this can be, there's a knack to pulling it off that's more reactionary than methodically self-taught. Unfortunately, with the time frame, I was not able to find someone else to play local co-op with me, but the game does offer a local co-op mode and I've heard it is implemented pretty well. The entire experience works more towards a boss rush format, as much as the majority of levels are boss fights that can include stages and transformations. How many depends on the difficulty you choose to face each boss, with the higher difficulty regular causing bosses to have more phases to fight through, increases their speed and gives them faster and more numerous attacks. The much less common level type is the run and gun platformer sections for extra coins that allow you to purchase upgrades from the shop. I'll be honest, these are the least interesting points of the game, and I found myself skipping them. All these stages are chosen on a sort of walkable overworld, presented in a top-down view, where you can chat with NPCs, walk between levels, and just admire the hand-drawn watercolour-like backgrounds you tend to miss during the frenzy each level usually is. By this point you've almost certainly heard how hard Cuphead is. If I were to describe the game in 2 terms, it'd be 1930s and difficult. I mean, it's not Dark Souls, but it's arduous, agonising, and it's demanding. It's as if the game wants to punish you for holding a 21st century gamepad by urging you to throw it at the nearest solid object. But with such slick controls and a feast for the eyes, as well as choreographed boss encounters so fluid and engaging, you can't help but feel that the game is tough, but fair. It strikes you down for laziness or taking things too quickly, and deaths have weight to them, but they never feel unconquerable. What I began to notice is that although the art style will almost certainly be cemented in gaming culture for many years after the game has fallen from commercial relevancy, some screens tend to be quite busy, distracting your focus somewhat and leading to moments of loss as you try to bring your attention back into the action. This is my first Q review to recent memory, with the Q standing for quick by the way, where I've struggled to trim the fat, but I can't truly explain how great Cuphead is. It's a masterpiece. It's a game whose hype was built on the screenshots alone, but does everything needed to elevate itself above the gimmicky status early hype brings. It is mountains of fun and canyons of pain at the same time. It's taken a jaded, tear-sodden coward of challenging games like me and taught me to endeavour. And the feeling of beating a boss on regular, there's not much I've experienced in gaming that can really match that. Cuphead is not perfect, some screens are too busy, the art style could dissuade some more picky buyers, and the game is bollock-crushingly difficult, but it's an experience so brilliantly put together and finely displayed that you can't help but value the experience down to every bruise and blister. It's like a bucking bronco that pats you on the head and gives you a wink and offers another go before flinging you across a room in a matter of seconds. You will like this game if you like Max Fleischer, Mega Man, and buying new controllers.